man, Justin Calvino, owner of Emerald Road. And, we want to drop some gems, man, and bring out to speed what we got going on, what keeps us inspired, and what we're trying to bring to the world. You want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Justin Calvino, thanks Dame for putting this on. We've been talking about doing this for a minute, and God, we got it pulled together. Justin Calvino, regenerative culture designer, founder at emeraldroad.io, working to create, a Web3 future. That's what I'm at.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So I got a series of questions to ask you today, and we're gonna start one at a time. The theme of the podcast is Life Pivot, and what does that mean to you, and what do you feel like that represents?
I mean, what just came up for me was like a pivot on a court, right? So, staying on the ball of your foot, the guy you're passing to might not be open, you know what I'm saying? You gotta pivot to the right, you gotta pass to the guy that's open, you gotta make the shot. I mean, so it's like, it's teamwork, it's about, it's not all about I, right? Pivot is about getting the ball where it gets to go to make the goal, and the goal is whatever you make it, at that point in time, it's a basket and a hoop. It might be a new car, it might be a house, it might be, stable childcare.
Changes.
Yeah, just everything. All your goals change, So it's like but if you stay in the same direction all the time and you don't pivot, like you're gonna run into the bleachers.
Yeah, or feel your tires.
Or feel your tires or passes to the wrong guy or get blocked.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all about the pivot, it's all about your team, it's all about identifying, where that ball's going. So you're gonna get it in the hoop, and it's not all about you're the guy that makes a shot all the time, right? It is about that pivot, So
100%. So yeah, man, I gonna break down to everybody our history and where you kind of started, and tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you're going, But let's start with where you're from. A little history.
Yeah, so I'm from colonized culture. I'm European. My family was the original colonizers. We had the first land grant to the Bronx. So we colonized the Bronx. We colonized New York. Actually, my first act as a billionaire, well, maybe a future trillionaire, is going to be to kick the Yankees out the Bronx. Sorry.
I mean, get a new home.
Give an eviction notice. That being said, I'm a Red Sox fan. Anyway, no, but we, we're, foundational in signing the Declaration of Independence. We, involved in some pretty major atrocities with natives and native culture. From that side, the rest of my family is from Europe. That all came into Ellis Island. Can track it back. So
You come from a family of movers and shakers. That's what I would call it. And I feel like that's important because people sometimes think people wake up and just like try to go for the gusto, but nah. Really, what I learned is what 40 taught me is people. Everybody comes from unique bloodlines that gives them a unique story and purpose behind what makes you, what gives you your drive. So like learning all that over the years, what would you say gave you your own unique inspiration through learning all of that, your upbringing, where you're from, and like what kind of made you, what do you feel you got your unique inspiration from through all that?
No, I would say like my mom grew up blue blood, right? Having all that history. She grew up blue blood. She grew up with servants and maids and cars and drivers. My grandfather followed his love in his heart, and in World War II he married a German.
Wow.
And versus his betrothed, pre-war marital arrangement. Which was an English woman who was also blue blood from Jersey or New York, Jersey society. And my grandfather, he married a German. So in my great grandfather's will, he got cut out.
Oh wow!
And so he was able to live on a trust until he died, and then that trust went back to the state. And actually, went to the family estate, which was held in Maine. So actually just about 2 months ago, 3 months in December, I went and I actually sat on the land, which I was conceding. We owned York Harbor.
Wow.
So my family estate was York Harbor, and when my grandfather died, all our trust went back to him.
Full circle.
Or went back to the state. So it was like watching that amount of wealth, you know, it was, you know, and it was, at the time, it was 500 million and the trust went, like, we never got to see that. But we grew up with that. We grew up with that in our face. You know what I'm saying? We grew up with my mom.
What I learned is it gives your bloodline infrastructure because it's coming from that.
Yeah.
It's like a foundation.
Yeah. And so I got to see, you know, I got to see that on a real, you know, played out in my life with my mom. She was a single mom. You know, worked, you know, full-time job. She, you know, raised us.
My mom had 2 or 3 jobs.
Dad not around. You know, my grandfather, of course, you know, supported and helped out a little bit, but my mom was prideful, so she, you know, she worked. You know, she worked, and she, you know, she was a chef, so, you know, burns, cuts, blood, you know, like late hours, you know, the alcoholism, like all of that. So I grew up in this,
to make it at those times.
And then that bitterness, you know what I'm saying, knowing that she didn't have to do all that if my, you know, like, because she came from that silver spoon.
Funding would have just aligned with her. But you know, sometimes it fuels people in the opposite way, because if she would have had everything just like laid out, you probably wouldn't have half your ambition.
Well, that's what it was, right? So it was like in the face of all this. It's kind of like, you know, when you like miss the bus and it's not coming back, and you got to figure out how you're gonna get home. Like, I don't know. I'm from transit culture, right? So we had bus cards. So it's like, you know, like if you miss that bus, you got to figure out how you're going to get home, because you know, usually the bus is the last one to run. You know, so it's like, and if you've got buses, you're probably not hitchhiking. So it's, you know, so it's like, all right, you know, how am I getting home? You know, and
those experiences give us what I feel like tough skin, because I'm coming from it pretty much similar. I came to Connecticut, New York area in '87. My mom was working 2-3 jobs, you know, so like seeing that, I think at an early age, I learned the power of money. I remember like at 10 to 14, her telling me, yo, I'm gonna, like anything over $100, you're gonna have to pay for. So my story at like 10 to 4, I was already like selling stuff, you know, trying to figure out like, hey, this discomfort I got, I don't want to be in this discomfort. So I was already advanced at that age because of my family history. Then learning it more over time, come to find out like there was a lot of bartering and trading coming from my bloodline that kind of made me. So there's things that I do day to day that I don't even understand, but I overstand once I learned my bloodline was big in like the pirate times in the 1800s. Jamaica was like the biggest place for free trade in the world, and one of the biggest places for the pirates to dock. Reason being prostitution, weed, gold, and things to trade, tangible things to trade that my whole life I've been bartering, selling stuff. So like once I understood, okay, my mom's side, they brought like spices to trade in the 1800s, and then my dad's side, they got away with like a chunk of gold or something that they were trading and bartering on my dad's father's side. So at 40, I was like, oh shit, okay, now I understand my whole buildup. So even if I wanted to stop doing some of the things I'm doing, it just won't ever stop, because this is a bloodline of what I'm coming from. My last name, Williams, it's a handful of billionaires still to this day. That is a Williams, come to find out. Pharrell, Birdman and Pharrell come from the water with the pirates. Pharrell comes from Virginia Beach on the water, same bloodline in the 1800s that got away from the slavery. Birdman in New Orleans on the water channel, same thing. It's like all one. But at, you know, 20, in and out of jail, stealing cars, doing illegal stuff, I didn't really understand that. But then, you know, you meet a couple knowledgeable people along the way that you can kind of suck information from. It gives you understanding a lot of my roster family, on a conscious level, I think I learned a lot of understanding from them, and I just tried to build things for myself that, with the things that I specialize in, knowing how to have charisma, being good in business, all of these things that it's things that are in people. So we run into people, I feel like, that don't have it. It's not them, it's their bloodline. That they just don't have it mentally in them to, perform on our level, because if they were, they would be in the same room. And that's why, like, the more connected I feel like we get, or we elevate, we separate from people that aren't on our same time. Not saying that we're better than anybody, but Jay-Z said everybody has their own genius level super talent. But if you can't use it or you don't know how to manipulate it, what good is it? So how I got into building a lifestyle brand, it was just like, it's something I've been doing my whole life. I just had the resources to, one, create some type of ownership and take my inspiration and empower people with the things I'm building and my network. So even sometimes I'm not making money with people, I've learned the resources through business. You can never be short of enough resources as you're trying to elevate. So that gave me a lot of will, and creating this platform, I learned what I'm going after is exposure and empowering. I feel like everybody can be way richer if you're empowering people around you. You're just as rich as the person next to you with what you're doing. So I'm having fun, and looking forward to what the future has in store for everybody. And I love for everybody to share their information, because everybody just can't wake up and do what we're doing. So, your inspiration, your passion, like, that's huge, because all of these things they're telling me is like, what gave you the passion to get where you're at on your own level?
That didn't give me the passion. No, that's just the backstory. I mean, my family, I came from hustle culture too, right? Like, we didn't come up as just, politicians and landowners. We had to get that bread. You know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody.
When I say passion, I mean, what did you find as you got older? What did you feel like? What were you passionate? Like I was telling you, these things I learned over the time. People would be like, damn, man, this guy is a maniac. He got a fire inside him that won't stop. But I learned the backstory behind it. I was like, okay, this is why I'm passionate about these things.
I think my mom got her first job when I was like 7 or 8.
Gotcha.
Ever. Right? And I think there was this weird thing about her that she was like, oh shit, if I'm working, you're working. Right?
Yeah,
like if you're like, if I'm working, you're working.
Yeah,
like we're all working. Like, man, what the fuck? Like, I don't even know what about this work thing, but if you're gonna work, I'm gonna work. Or if I'm gonna work, you're gonna work. Like, nothing's for free. And I think what it was is it's, like, and my mom was very prideful, so so it was like, so it was in that way. And my dad was, my dad wasn't there, but he was like, my dad was like kind of like the spiritual guardian on the back, like, y'all work it out, you guys figure it out. I'm gonna be over here meditating, and and holding space, and which gave me a way to like think, gave me mindfulness, so I was able to actually not just act, I would think as well. But I know that
the consciousness behind
what I was doing. But my mom was like, you're gonna work. So at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. My mom's doing catering gigs. She's got restaurants. She's doing all these things. It's
figuring out resourceful ways.
Like OC, you see OC, bro. I mean, like I brought OC in the trap once, and it's like you're like, oh damn, And it's like, and I try not to, but that's not what I'm trying to do. But I'm saying, like, I bring him places with me. I bring him to work. I bring him to work. He grew up on farm. He goes on farm.
You can't sleep in.
You can't sleep in. Not in my house.
That's what I'm teaching my daughter as well.
So it's like, so at the end of the day, and if you do, you're gonna hear about it. Right, and what I'm hoping is, in the future, that correlates to like their hustle mentality, and they grow from it as well.
Give them some type of drive.
But I say, like, when I was a kid, that's you worked for it. Like that was it. It was you just worked. There was no in between. There's no hand. I mean, of course we got Christmas. You know what I'm saying? Like for sure, like, or birthday presents and stuff like that. But it was like when you go to the store, you didn't get something because you went to the store. Like So we went to the store because we're going to get something for the family, like food. You know, so like that was the way it was. But hustle, but it was the same thing. Like if I wanted a skateboard, if I wanted a surfboard, if I wanted to, you know, if I wanted, you know, a hat, if I wanted shoes.
It's not gonna come from the sky. Like, you gotta be innovative to figure it out. I'm
gonna work it out.
That's what I come from.
So getting into weed, like I had, you know, it's like you're not. I'm like my mom's not gonna pay for weed, right? And then I'm like thinking like, okay, well, you know, if everybody else needs it, right? Like it just made sense for me to, you know, this is the old school story. This is everybody's story. I think it's like, you know, it just made sense that, you know, we'll use everybody else's money to buy your weed. You know what I'm saying? Because you go buy it low and sell it at the margin. Those margins were set up. They were set up because it was funny, and most people will relate to. It was usually set up with there was 2 quarter-ounce prices. There was the wholesale, and then this is back in the days with the sticks and stems and seeds, right?
I remember.
But there are 2 quarter-ounce prices. There's a $25 quarter, right? And then there's a $50 quarter, right? Because there's a $25 eighth. So there's a $25 eighth or a $25 quarter. You could go either way, right? Depends on who you know. And it was great because if you were in 7th, 8th grade, you're spending $25 an eighth, just straight up. But if you're in high school and you start to get closer to the guy, you're gonna spend $25 for a quarter, and then you split it. So this is like the social hierarchy, right? So then you're gonna split it, and then you got all of a sudden your weed dealer gets a quarter or an eighth for free. He gets a head stash for free, right? And back in the day, that was enough to roll a blunt. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got a blunt for $25. You split it between 3 or 4 people. You guys go down by the train tracks. You'll smoke your blunt.
So resourcefully, at what point were you able to make it financially lucrative? And did you believe in networking?
Oh,
obviously.
I mean, it was easy, bro. Like,
it takes resources to make money off of anything. Like, yeah, you could have a product, yeah, you could have the ingenuity, but like, and I'm actually just from experience because, you know, I did everything. I used to buy and sell clothes, cars, parts, everything. And without the resources, without the networking.
Well, that's what Jay-Z said about being unique, right? So it's like, you know, that unique talent, and you know, it also comes down to the brand. What makes your brand unique, right? You know, like, what is your special sauce? Right? Like, what did you put in that somebody else didn't? And then how can you tell somebody, how can you articulate that to the masses or to your customer? Like, 100%. Hey, listen, like, no, I'm better because, right? And, or I'm different because, and it could be just a metric, right? Like, so we were talking last night, you know, like the $11 eighth, the $22 quarter, the $44 half, the $88 ounce, no breaks. Right,
so
that was it.
Do you think you were able to catapult? Because there's a lot of people that wake up and say, you know what, I'm not gonna work, I'm gonna hustle, I'm gonna try to pimp, I'm gonna try to like live off people, I'm gonna try to like get a girl to scam, I'm gonna scam. Like right now in this new era, how scamming is like a new thing. What made you separate from everybody? And like, when I say separate, I mean like, what do you think made it work? I remember there is a big difference from somebody, you know, in the front of the corner store hustling or for us to get where we're at, you know.
There was the come up was like this. It was easy. It was like, it started out with skateboards and gear. Then it started out with Shorties. That was a brand back then. I worked at a skate shop, and Shorties hat had to match the shirt.
Well, see, that's a network right there.
And the Chad Muskas. I had the Muskas, and the Muskas had the stash spot in the tongue.
See, that's
and I had to have the Muskas in each color, kind of like the Champions and the Ewings. Remember when we did all that?
The
Ewings,
like, I had all the tonics.
Yeah. Like I did all that. I bought all those, right? When I was a kid, like 10, 11, 12 years old. All my Ewings were different colors because I bought them, but I had them all the suede.
But even then,
the suede with the tags on.
You were advanced to be able to do that because that was a big thing back then.
Cross colors, all that shit. That was like
Etonics, Pro Kids.
So when I got that, when I went up into skate gear, when I was doing skate gear, it was Chad Muskas, it was Shorties, and it was a flat bill, and it was really funny because like I was also a hippie as, you know what I'm saying, like I had dreadlocks, and I was just, you know, like, but I was that kid, and I remember at about 95, Hummer came out with the civilian truck.
I remember that.
It wasn't the H. It wasn't the H4.
It was a knockoff.
It was an H4.
Expensive and good and better on gas.
It was H2. It was H2, but it was big as the Humvee. It was big as the Humvee and the military issue Humvee, but it was catered to like rich dudes.
I remember that. On a different type of budget.
Different type of budget. And I remember seeing this Hummer. And where I was from Rhode Island, so like Hummer's about half the size of the state. So when you see a Hummer, you're like, damn, that is a big vehicle. And we were built, because Rhode Island was built on horse buggy carriage fucking streets, so everything was thin. That Hummer was big. And I remember I used to sell on a street called Thayer Street. It's like the arts district, it's like the kind of Melrose Arts District of Rhode Island. It's like where the colleges were. Trendy, everything. So in Providence, you see this Hummer driving down the street. I was like, oh,
what's going on?
Yeah, that's it. And I remember like what we said then in the slang was, "What's up, kid? What's up, kid?" We called everybody was kid. The movie Kids was out. I knew the guys. I was skating with the guys from Kids. Like we were, it was like
big that era. Kids, I remember.
Yeah, we were like, "What's up, kid?" And that was, so I remember, and I used to tag. So I tagged, and I remember like I had my initials were my tag, like that was it. It was But then I remember, and I had a character, you know what I'm saying? That I drew the hat and the spray can, and then and my initials, and that was like that's what I put on my big pieces. My small pieces were just my initials. And I remember I was like, fuck, I'm making so much money. Like, and I remember seeing in one of those magazine articles or one of those the articles, the Hummer H2 like so thing where it was like funny. And it was like $6.99 a month, and I'm like, man, I'm crushing that in like a couple days.
2 seconds.
Like I'm like that.
So at that point,
so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get the Hummer H2. Right, I'm gonna get my boy Jeff. He was signed on. He was 21. He was 21. I'm gonna get Jeff to buy the car, right? And then I'm gonna spray paint the side of it. What's up, kid? I'm gonna be a 15-year-old driving around Providence in this fucking H2 with this goddamn spray painted, like Hummer, and that was my goal. That was my come up. And then and I had my mess up with like Bam and Miz and MO and all the street guys and all the people that like the stuff like they're always with me every day and But I remember like my hustle was real and I was driven and that was my goal.
How did your family take on that? Like, cause you said you didn't come from money directly with your mom, so like, was that an overwhelming thing for you to like want something so big for her, working multiple jobs, or like?
Truth at that point, I was pissed at my mom. I'd already left home, so I was already done with my mom. I'd moved in with my dad, who was like, Mr. Consciousness and everything like that, trying to be like a conscious parent. Like had a 10:30 curfew at 14, 15. So like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and but none of people my age were staying up that late or out that late. So all my friends were a lot older. So I was I was following the Grateful Dead. I was hanging out with all the Grateful Dead kids. So I was already on lot. Working psychedelics and weed, and on Grateful Dead lot, living in Providence, being super urban. So it was like, so we were these urban kids living a Grateful Dead lifestyle.
That's
and just hustle.
Super advanced.
And then just super advanced. And then by the time I was 16, I left home multiple times. Like tried to get my own place, tried to get my own apartments, everything like that. Kept on ending up back with my dad. And by the time I was 16, it was like, I'm done. I was in a book called Book Your Own Fucking Life, or my house was, right, which was couchsurfing.com back in the day, and it was just in the back of the book, it gave you a list of addresses where you could go crash at the dude's house or wherever if you were traveling. So you could buy them at like Spencer's and like record stores.
You kind of basically you outgrew your neighborhood. You advance. You're getting certain information to see. I kind of can relate to that, like. At like 14, I felt like I understood the dollar value. Like I didn't really grow that close with my dad, but like I remember us reaching out, like, yo, we need help. And the second that he wasn't really able to like help, it turned me into like a monster. At like that same age, I was probably going through the same and start getting into Hondas and Acuras. At that age, at like 14 to 20, I was like Vin Diesel with the cars were gone in 60 seconds. I wasn't really into like high-end cars, but I was into like Hondas and Acuras where like by 18, I probably had like 10 that I owned that my mom knew about, like 2, 3 of them, that I used to park them in my buddies' like gated communities and we'd put fake temp tags on them. So talk about advance, like, so that, the 10 of them probably totaled, if I was into flashy things, I probably had enough cash to buy a Mercedes Benz at the time. There's still 100,000. I had 10 Hondas that were probably 10, 20,000 at the time that I owned the car titles for. So same thing.
Well, see, that book thing. I was just finished that book thing. Now, one day this guy came. See, I had all that money, right? And the money was great, but the money, you're 15, 16 years old.
And the money don't mean nothing if you don't have the knowledge to do anything with it.
What are you doing with money? I am going to flip my money.
Facts.
So I'm buying more and more work. I'm bringing it back to the house, put myself in more and more risk, getting robbed, bigger and bigger, more and more trouble. You know what I'm saying? Calling more and more attention.
And the shit's growing because of your unlimited will from your blood.
I'm all the way up. You know what I'm saying? So my basement, this is the big thing about pivot and hustle culture, right? It's like, if you're a pro ball player, right, you're not going to go back to go play high school ball. You've passed that. You go on to college, and your college level, then you go to semi-pro or pro.
You peel your tires and stay in the same doing the same thing.
Your muscle memory goes back. So if you get robbed, and your floor is 20, 30K at that age, you know what I'm saying? Your hustle back is to that.
Then that was somebody's salary.
No, that was like
a correctional officer or an entry-level police officer.
But you bro, you got 30, 40, 50 pounds, you know what I'm saying, now in your closet that you're breaking down. I mean, I had fucking embalming fluid gallons.
Crazy.
I had gallons of embalming fluid. I was breaking up that weed, putting it out on newspaper. Gallon spraying embalming fluid on top of it. We called it illy, the balm. Sherm smoke. Bro, Sherm sticks. You know where that came from? Because we were literally, I would literally just be sitting there spraying, gallon spraying, pump. That shit had death fucking tags all the fuck over it. I got it from a funeral home.
That was crazy.